Oh, it's probably because you don't have a probably because you don't have a picture.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. So, first of all, today we have a checkpoint. So let's get that over with. Ethan or somebody, one of the TS, Lee or Sam, will select the link out. We'll do it in 10 minutes. Then, towards the end of the class, there's a new homework. Ethan is going to introduce that, so I'm going to leave some time for that as well. What? Express, yeah. The checkpoint is on Express. Couple of more housekeeping tasks. I am not here on this Saturday. Matt is going to be here. I have to go out of town. So I'm not going to be here this Saturday, but I'll see you guys on Tuesday. I'll talk a little bit more about towards the end of the class. Today's class is going to be a little bit more challenging than usual. If it wasn't challenging enough, I'm sorry. You still have to cover a lot. So just be prepared. It's going to be a little bit challenging. Okay. All right. So let's deal with the checkpoint first. Ethan stacked it out on class activities. I think there are like 20, 22 questions. We'll just take 10 minutes and then we'll start the class. All right, let's go ahead and start on today's class. All right. Before we begin, it's going to be the format is kind of going to be a little bit different today and onward. I'm going to be still live coding some of the important concepts or some of the new ones. In addition to that, I'm going to be showing you a code a lot more now. Okay, we'll walk through line by line, but I want you guys to kind of get in the habit of looking at somebody else's code and try to understand what's going on. Okay, as a part of software engineer, you will see a lot of time. It's not necessary that every day you would get a new project. You'll be working in a team and you will be looking at somebody else's code and try to debug that code. Okay, so I want you guys to kind of get into that habit. Look at somebody else's style, look at how somebody else is coding, and try to understand what's going on. Okay, but I'll still be coding some of the more important concepts, but some of them that we have covered, or there's a little bit new. I'm going to walk you guys through and see if you understand that. Okay, we'll start kind of changing a little bit. All right, before we begin, we'll start with activity number 11. If you make sure you pull from GitLab, because I did change this activity. If you haven't pulled since yesterday, I updated this activity, I think yesterday morning or something. So if you haven't, please make sure you pull from GitLab so that you have the latest activity. Okay, this is activity number 11. All right. So if you look at this activity, you will see that my footprint in this activity, because you'll see the folder structure, I went ahead and changed a bit. Um, but if you look at the unsolved one, a lot of stuff has been done for you. Okay, you see the public folder. Um, it has assets, some JavaScript, CSS. Then if you go into your views folder, you have your handlebars. Okay, if you open up any handlebars, you will see there's some code inside it. Okay, so all of this code is already done for you, right? And you will also see you have schema and seeds, so you don't have to worry about creating the database as in coming up with the table name and everything. All of this is given to you. You have to run this so that you have a table. Okay, and then the seeds file have the data that you can insert into your table. Okay, so this is all given to you. What is more important is your server.js, and then I had our APIs, and we went through all our get, post, put, delete APIs. Okay, so this activity, what you have to do is you have to recall that. You can go back, refer to my activity that I solved. It's already uploaded. Refer to that, and you have to complete each one of these APIs and the routes. Okay, so the only change you have to do is in server.js. All right, in the class, concentrate on server.js. After the class, when you're going through, please make sure you go through this activity and look at each one of these files. Okay, why is it important? It is important because right now it's solved for you, but when you are doing an activity, when you're doing a project, you have to kind of follow a kind of similar folder structure. So you need to know what each one of them is doing or how this data is being displayed on the screen. Okay, I kind of solved this on Tuesday, so we won't go through these. Again, the more important part is your server.js, and you are able to write your routes and APIs. Okay, once you run this, there's a package JSON also, so you don't have to worry about installing each package. You can just do npm I, it will install everything for you, and this has your express handlebars, MySQL, and everything. Okay, so all of this is already set up. The only thing you need to worry about is your server.js. Okay, server.js also has your initial code, port numbers are set up, your localhost, your database connection is there with the database name. Make sure you update your username and password. Okay, and then before doing anything, once you have this, once you have your installation done, once you have your SQL files run and your database set up, please make sure to run this before you start coding any of this. Okay, if you get a success message, you are connected to your database, your Express server is running, then go ahead and start working on this. Okay. All right. Before we begin, let's quickly recap. Make sure we understand what each one of them is doing. Okay. Let's start with the first one, line number 35. All right. Let's see. Chris G. Chris, what gets returned in the first one? the slash. What should
Should be a string.
it's going to be a what?
String, or that's the route, right?
Right. What is going to be returned from that route?
Whatever is in whatever.
Right. There's nothing in it right now, but so we have to code that out. But we looking at the standards and best practices, we should be able to guess what's going to return from this. So that's the question. What do you think is going to get returned once we have everything coded out? What should be returned from the first route?
Just the data.
Data is a very generic word. Can you specify?
Populated with offload.
Oh, no. That's not what I mean. So what are so again, if you there are times that I intentionally kind of make the question vague. If you don't understand, please make sure to kind of drill down into it. So when I say what's going to be returned, there are only two things that we have seen that get returned from our route. Do you know what those two things are? It's one or the other.
Error.
No. From a route. When I go to this route, what should happen?
You should get information.
Information. Okay. What kind of information?
Whatever information is in that.
Right. So do you know what that information would be? As in, is it going to be? You said data. It's not going to be data. So what else? If it's not data, what else? What about a web page? Can a web page be returned? What is your web page?
Yeah, it could be that. It could be.
Well, it's going to be only one thing.
It's just another file, right?
File. What's the extension of that? What kind of file?
Maybe a JavaScript file.
Um,
It's gonna be HTML file.
HTML. Okay. So there are only two options. Either our route is going to return HTML or it's going to return, as Chris said, data. But what is that data called? Any idea? HTML or JSON? Huh? No, either HTML or JSON. Those are the only two options. Okay. Let's see, Nicole. What about the second one? What is the second one going to return? Line number 40. So what are the right? I mean, can there be anything? We haven't covered anything else. We have only seen these two, right? So those are the only two things that return from our routes, and that's how it's going to be. So what is going to be returned from this route? You're asking me. Why do you think it's going to be HTML? So there's a 50% chance, and she's right. It's going to be HTML. Okay. What about Michael? Why do you think it's going to be HTML?
Because it's not an API.
Exactly. You guys see it? It's not an API. Right? And how do we tell it's not API? Because I'm following good practices, and I have all my APIs prefixed by the word API. So it's not going to return me a JSON. It's always going to. It should return me a HTML file. Okay. The same with the first one. Is there an API? No. So it should return me an HTML. Second one, the same thing. Okay. Michael, one more question. Why do I have an ID? What's the difference between this one and this one?
The first one basically just takes you to your root directory.
Ah, nice.
The other one takes in a parameter.
Takes it to where?
Takes in a parameter.
Ah, yes. It takes in a parameter. Looks like it's an ID. So basically, looks like it's you'll have a page, the first one, which will list things. I don't know what. Looks like quotes. Okay. This one is saying, hey, maybe you select a single quote, and this is saying you're going to display a single quote with this ID. Looks like that's how it is, right? Once you get to it, you can look at the comments and see what page you want to display. Okay, looks like there's a page called single quote. You can look at the code and see what's going on. Okay, but that's the high level. All right, excellent. Adriel, what about line number 45? What do you think is going to be returned? Line 45. JSON. Okay, why JSON?
Because you have it
Okay, excellent. Now, you said JSON. That's good. Let's dive deeper. What would the JSON have? Directory of codes. JSON doesn't have a directory. Let's talk about data type. What is it going? What will the JSON contain? String. Why a string? No. Not an object. Close. Try one more time. You'll get it. Not an object. An array. Okay. An array. Basically, if you have a get route, and then you have an API. Okay, no parameters, nothing, just like this, right? It has to return a collection. Okay, for now, our collection is arrays, so it's going to return an array. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. Kelly, you want to try it? So, what is this going to return? Line number 50.
Basically, just going to bring you a JSON file with quotes with, or a single quote from the ID.
Yes, and what would be that? Is it going to be an array or?
It'll be an array, right? Just.
Oh no. In this case, what's going to get returned? It's a JSON, right? But it's not going to be an array.
The object.
An object.
Because it's only one.
It's only one. Okay, so in the database you might get an array, I get it, but you have to return a single object. Right, do you guys see the difference again? The first one is going to return a collection, an array of objects. The second one is going to return a single object. And why? Because this is an ID. The ID is unique. There's always going to be a single row in your database, a single object with this ID. Okay, it cannot have another object with the same ID. Your database will not let it happen. Okay, why? Because we have a primary key. If you try to do it, it's going to give you an error. So there's no possibility you'll have a non-unique ID. Okay, so by this intention, if you have a get route with an ID, you are saying I'm always going to return a single row, a single object, a single instance.
Wouldn't you have multiple IDs usually?
Multiple IDs, but only each ID is unique. You cannot have the same ID twice.
Right.
So if an ID of 3 is inserted, you cannot have another 3 in your database.
So when you just say ID, that's just going to be
ID over here means the parameter. So this could change. This could be 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on your browser what you are sending. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at this one. This is difficult. Kel, you want to try this one? Line number 55. The question is, what is this route going to do? What is it actually doing? Is it returning me something? If it is, what is it going to return? Or what is the purpose of this route? It's adding to the? Adding to the, it's adding, yes. What do you mean adding to the API? Right, but where is it adding? You're close. I mean, I see what you're meaning. It's just the term might be a little bit different, but where do you add or insert data? Right, but eventually where does it land up? Where will you see that data if I want to go and see that data? Data? Where does data reside? In the database, right? So you are inserting whatever data that comes in this API into your database. That's what you're creating. Okay, this is the C of your CRUD operations. Okay. All right, Kel, one more thing. The same API. No, you'll get there. It's okay. Okay. Same thing. You are inserting data. Okay. Now, where is the data coming? In this API, where is the data? Where do you think the data is going to be? It's a post. Okay. In the body. See, you got it. Always remember, if there's a post, the data is going to be in the body. Okay, so you will get in your request rect, you're going to parse it. The body will have your data, and then you'll parse the data and send it to your database. Okay, that's your post request. Christina, delete. This is easy. What is this doing? Literally in the name. It's deleting. Okay, where is it deleting from? In the database, right? So you are saying that I want to delete a row in my database, right? And then this is the API that you are going to call, okay? And do you remember, Christina, how would it go and find what you're trying to delete from the API? How does it know which row to delete?
The ID.
The ID. Excellent. Awesome. Okay. So how do I know which row to delete exactly? This ID. That's why an ID gets passed in. Okay. So it's going to exactly delete how many rows? One and one only, right? Why? Because this is an ID, it's unique. There's going to be only one ID in your database. So it's always going to delete one row or none. One or none. None, maybe the ID is in there and you are sending ID that doesn't exist. So it won't delete anything. But it's always going to delete 0 or 1 rows. Okay? All right. Last one. Miyang, you want to try this one? The last one? The put. What does put do? Post, which is create. We did delete, which is delete. We did get, which is read. There's only one remaining from the CRUD operations. So we did C, R, and D. What's U? Update. Okay. So put is used for updating your database, updating a row in your database. Okay. Now, let's continue. Where is the data going to come? Right. So I'm trying to update something in my database, right? I understand this is a put request. I need to update the data in my database. So where is that data? Like, how do I pull that data from this API? In the what? From the request. And request has two things. From where? Request body. Okay. So put, you're going to pull the data from request body just like your post request. Okay. In addition to that, we also have an ID just like your get request. So you are pulling this information from two sources. The data is going to be in your request.body. Your ID is in your request.params. Okay, request.url parameters. So you're going to pull. So your put request is a little bit different. It is combination of both post and get. Post, why? Because remember, post only has data in the body, right? Put also has that. Get only has data in your URL parameters, and put also has that. So put is a combination of both get and post. Okay. What would you do? How many rows is it going to update? One or zero. Okay. Why? Again, this is the ID. So you are saying, hey, find this row with this ID in my database and go ahead and update the data which I'm sending in the request body. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and update the data, and you will have the new data in your database. Okay, all right. Any questions before you guys start working and coding this out? No questions? Yes.
We need to create our own database.
You have to create everything. The good part is you already have the SQL, so you can copy paste and use it. You have your insert queries, you can copy and paste in your database, and you will have your database ready. But you'll need your database. You'll need to install npmi. The good thing is package.json is there. It already has these three things. Okay. So next part, please go ahead and start working. Start from the top over here. Make sure you update your credentials for your database. Start from this route as we discussed. I'm going to start opening the solution. Not going to code it out. I already did. But I have the solution the way I would do it. And right now I have all of them minimized, and I'm going to open after a few minutes, but start from the first one. So here is, minimize this. Okay. All right, so start from the initial route, code everything out, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
the other one would let you access your database directly in Heroku and edit it, the Mongo one.
Uh-huh.
But JAWS, I don't think you can.
Yeah, you'll have to create the connection.
Right, so I already did that.
Okay.
I've got it right here.
Uh-huh.
So this matches the same settings that they've got right here, but it's telling me that it can't connect. So I don't know if it's something with AWS. Like, I saw some stuff online about people saying like 3306 was like blocked maybe from your.
Yeah, I think I was going to say that. So I think the network that we are on might be blocking this port.
Okay.
Let's see. So you're using 3306 over here?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Heroku says?
Yeah. Heroku's got 3306.
Okay.
And then this is the host and the username and everything.
Yeah. Do you have hotspot? We can quickly check if this connects with that.
I don't.
Okay. Because I think
it's probably going to be the same one on UBINet.
Yeah.
Same issue.
Same issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because I remember last cohort also, and they were mentioning that somehow the university blocks
the 3306.
The 3306.
Okay.
So that might be
Gotcha. It's not a huge deal. I was just gonna update like my homework to move some of these back to the other side, because it's like, because once they move over here, I don't have a way to revert them back to the other side. But it's no big deal.
I think, but that's
got to be what it is. So, because clearly I accessed it before. This was saved in here, so it's like.
Yeah.
I must just once I get home, I can probably.
Yeah, just confirm it. Post it on Slack. So
okay.
But I'm pretty sure
that's got to be the issue. Yeah.
The university blocks it. So I have opened the first one, the initial route, which should return us a HTML. Okay, very similar to what we did on Tuesday. Okay, so that's your first one. Looks like you have to return your index.handlebars, render function, and you are passing in your results. Follow kind of same pattern, and the second one would be kind of similar to this one.
So basically, I created this file.
So your second one, as I said, it's very similar to the first one. Okay, the only thing is there's an ID, so you need to add the where condition. And then you are passing back same thing, an HTML or a handlebars file, right? But the file name is different. Again, that's what it says. Show the user individual code to form the to update the code. So you're passing in a single object to your single dash code. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. This is your file, and looks like it's expecting a single quote. So if you go ahead and run this after completing these two, you should be able to see initial load with all the quotes once you have your database. Okay. And second, I think if you click it, it takes you to a new page and it should give you just one result. All right, as we move along, please let me know if you have any questions, any code, any line, but should be, hopefully it's looking familiar. Again, the first two are just returning HTML. Handlebars file is also basically an HTML. All right, we haven't looked into the JSON one yet. Right after this, we are moving into our APIs. Okay, the next ones all would be our API routes. So we are returning JSON or some kind of information back. which is not going to be a HTML. And the first one is that returns a collection of code. So everything from your database, this should return everything from your database. So your API, this one is going to be, I think, very similar to the first one. The only thing is you're not going to render an index file. Instead, you're going to return this data back to your whoever calls this API for this one. Same query, but this time instead of calling index.handlebars, you're going to return this as JSON. This route, API/codes. So I think we'll just copy. It's going to be exactly the same except this line over here. Okay, because this is the HTML route we are returning, or we are running an HTML. This one is not an HTML route, so we need to return a JSON. Right, let me open this one. So this is what I'm saying. So exactly this part is the same as your initial route. The only thing is you are just returning a JSON of results, and results is going to be an array. Okay. So if you run this route in your browser, you should see an array, a JSON array with all your codes that are coming from the database. Okay. Same query, but this time our data is in JSON. And the ID one, very similar to the previous one, you're adding your where clause and just returning a JSON, but only one result, the second one. Let me open the second one. This time, same thing. You're passing in an ID. So that's why you are getting. Oh, I missed a question mark. Select star from quotes where question mark. Okay, that's better. Okay, so I'm sending the quote ID back, and this should give you exactly uh, one result. Oh, and I see why it was working. Because it's giving me the whole array, and I'm always sending the first back. So for your post route, it is inserting. So you have to write the insert query, and then the data is coming in the body. So it's going to be rec.body. Okay, and if you want to see how the data is, it's a quotes object. You can look into the JavaScript over here to exactly find out create form. So sending a quote object with author and quote. So these are the two things you're going to get. Okay. So if you look in your database, these are the two things you're inserting. The ID you don't have to worry about. It's going to be automatically inserted. Right? So author and quote, and that's what you're going to get in your post request. So it's going to be a quote object. Two things, and you can pass that object as it is to your insert query. Okay, insert into table name, which is quotes, question mark, set, question mark, and then you can pass in your rec.body. That should go ahead and insert a row in your database and generate a new ID. That is what I'm saying. So insert into your table name, set question mark. I'm not passing I am. Okay. So you can pass in exactly the whole body again. Why? Because if you look at your front end, they are sending you an object with author and quotes inside it, and that's what you need to insert in your database. So you can directly pass the body into the query instead of the question mark. Okay, remember the second parameter, we need to pass an object, and rec.body is already giving you an object, which is the quote object, so you can directly pass this. You don't have to wrap it around something, because that's exactly how it is coming. Okay, and how would you find it? You would have to look into your front end and see how the data is coming back. So if I look at my jQuery over here, you see create form. Once you run the app, you will see a form. You will fill out the author and the code, and this is how the object looks like, right? This is an object with these two properties, and that is exactly what's being passed into your post, into this API. Okay, that's why you can directly just use rec.body, insert it. This is optional. We need to return something, so this ensures that you have the ID. We have something to tell to the front end that it was successfully added to my database. Delete. So basically, you will notice that you should be just copy pasting if you understand it. You are just changing the SQL query to different queries. For delete, it would be delete quotes where your code ID is equal to something, right? This one. The ID is coming from your query your parameters, your URL parameters. Okay, just as you pulled it out from your GET request, you're going to pull this ID and then run the delete query. Okay, if it is successful, I think it's affected rows or something. Send that back. If not, then it just sends an error. Let's look at this one. Okay, same as your GET request. You're getting the ID in your prompts. And then this is just extra code, but remember I did this on Tuesday. This is checking to see if a row was deleted or not. Okay, remember, since we are passing in an ID, either one or none. Okay, either a single row will be deleted or none would be deleted. Okay, and with this delete functionality, we are saying that something should be deleted. If no row gets deleted, we are sending back a status 404, which means not found, or we are telling the browser that, oh, the ID that you sent me, I was not able to find any row corresponding to that ID, so I was not able to delete anything. Okay, again, that's kind of optional. It's good to have these kind of things so that you are aware, your front end, whoever is calling your API, they are aware what's going on. Okay, if you are able to delete everything is good, just send a 200 back. 200 means everything is good. It's called success. Okay, so your browser will know that everything went fine and you were able to delete a row from your database. The last one is your update, and that's the probably from all of them, that is a little bit more challenging. Again, why? Because you're getting data from two sources. Your ID is in your URL params, and your data is in the body. Okay, so you have to pull that information from two sources. Have to get the it's not too bad, but you have to get the ID using reg.params.id name quotes set question mark where question mark. Okay, so set the data that you're trying to update, which would be author and quote. Again, you don't have to worry about it. If you look at the front end, they're already passing you back a object, just like your post request. Okay, so you can directly pass in reg.body. Again, remember, put is kind of combination of your get request with an ID and a post request. So if you look at the query, update quote set question mark where question mark, okay, you have to wrap it around with an array. Again, why an array? Because I have more than one placeholders. Okay, if you're passing in more than one, you have to put it inside an array. All right. In my array, the first question mark corresponds to an object, which would be author and quote. So that's why you can directly pass in your rec.body just as your post request. Okay. The second is also going to be an object, but we are pulling out the ID from our params, reg.params, similar to your get request. Okay. Once you have these, the rest of the stuff is exactly the same that you have done in the previous ones. How many were able to complete all the APIs? Oh, Josh. Nice. Kelly.
But my deleted my whole entire.
Deleted the entire
I
database?
think I fixed it now.
Oh, okay. But you did it. Okay. 2. Anybody else? Close. Close. Okay. Yeah, post doesn't work. So you are getting the it crashes. You should have all the middleware, everything added on the top. So I added all that stuff. So it shouldn't be, unless this was removed, but it should already be there. Okay. Again, now I don't expect everybody is going to complete this activity. Again, as I said, the activities are challenging within the time frame. But what I want you guys to, as you understand, you see how we are coding this out. What's the pattern? It's very similar. Everyone has a SQL query. Okay, every query is different, and then you are pulling out the data from the URL or the body. Okay, for the get, you are pulling it from the URL parameters. For the post request, you're pulling it from the body. Okay, and then for delete, you are again pulling it from the URL params. And then for your put, you are pulling it from your URL parameters and the body. Okay, so there's a pattern to each one of them. Okay, again, please go back, do these activities. It's if you are very familiar with it, you could actually just copy paste the whole thing and keep doing it and fix it, because you see there are just you are blindly copy pasting it. Okay. The post. Oh, people are having difficulty with the post. Okay. So I have insert into quote set and then an object, and then you should be able to pass this. Are you getting any errors? What is it? Your route. So this route is being called from course.js. It shouldn't be any changes over here, and you should get this. There's no error in your console or your browser anywhere? Okay. All right. Before we proceed to the next one, any questions? No questions. Okay. So what do you guys see over here? Do you guys see some kind of a repetition that I have to write queries again and again and again? I mean, these are different queries, but I still have to write these queries again and again. Now, if I was doing a different activity, I'll have to redo the whole thing. I have to write the query again with a different table name. Okay. What do you think would be a easier way? If I can, I have to write the query, but instead of writing the same query, what is only different? Let's suppose I have quotes. On Tuesday, I did a different database. I think the one of the database. What was the database? Let me see. Task Saver, um, Day Planner, or something. Okay, the table structure were exactly the same. Okay, I could just replace the table name, and this should start working for that. Okay, but I have to redo the whole thing. I have to write this whole thing again and again and again. What do you guys think we could do to resolve that? Well, how do we do it? We'll look at the library on Saturday. Well, what about us? What is it? First, we'll write the library, and then we'll see what's out there. But what's the natural thing that comes to mind? Huh? Variables? No, not variables. What else? Constructor, class. What is a constructor? Like what is eventually a constructor? A function. So close. Okay, constructor is a function. So we could what if we wrote a function that takes in a table name, and I can call that function with any table name I want. That'd be nice, right? Yeah. All right. Let's give it a try and see if we can do that. Let's go back here. Okay. So I'm going to quickly walk you through my initial code. It's nothing new. We already have this code. I just copy pasted the connection. Okay. So this is my connection. Very simple database. I already have a database creators table and a pets table. Okay. Buyer information, ID, and name. Simple. And then some pet information. Pet ID, breed, name, price, and a buyer ID. Why do I have a buyer ID over here? Or this thing. Why do I have a buyer ID in my pets table? What is it, Irina? So we can join the two tables. There's a relationship that exists between my buyers and pets table. How do I ensure the relationship? I need to have that ID somewhere so that it can be identified. Okay, what does it say? That a pet over here belongs to what buyer? This buyer. Where is this buyer ID? It's coming from here. Okay, remember this helps us joining two tables. Right, week number 13, day 1. Please go back and look at the joins. Right, two tables. We have to have a relationship. So we have a buyer's ID over here. Okay, so these are the two tables I have. All right, and this is my connection. All right, if you looked at my Game of Thrones or some other refactored code, did you guys notice that I pulled my connection out into a different file, and I'm exporting that connection so I can import this instead of crowding my server.js. Did anybody see that? Yes? One? Okay. All right, so that's what I'm doing. So it's the same connection code. I'm just exporting it so I can import this somewhere else instead of crowding my server.js. Okay, now what we are going to look at, we are going to look at the example of creating a function, right? That we're going to write a query, a generic query in that function, so that we can keep calling that function in our different databases or different tables for now. Okay, so for example, if I had to I'm going to create a file over here. Don't worry about the name. We'll come back and I'll explain why do I have this name called ORM. But for now, I'm going to create a function. So what do I have to do right now? I have to In my server.js, I have to import my connection. And then if I want to run a query against my pet database, for example, my pets table, I have to say select star from pets, and it will show me the rows. Okay. Now I have to write a query for my buyers table. What do I have to do? I have to write the exact same query saying select star from buyers, will give me the buyer information. Okay. But you see, those two queries, we are going to extract them out. We are going to put them inside a function, and all I'm going to do is call my function and pass in a table name. Okay, I'm going to say, hey, I want to run a select query against this table, give me all the data, and it's going to give me the data. Okay, instead of writing, keep writing the select query. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to import my connection into this file. Let's say const connection is equal to require require and /connection. Okay, again, why do I need connection? So that I have my access to my database, which is all this stuff over here. Okay, so if you run this, it's going to start my connection. That's why I need this. Okay, so I'm going to create an object ORM. Don't worry about the name. You can name it anything. We'll see what is the significance. What does ORM mean eventually? Okay, but right now it's a simple object. And what am I going to do? I'm going to export this object so that it can be used in my server.js. .exports is equal to ORM. Okay, again, this is Node.js starting. Nothing too complicated. I'm just creating an object. I'm exporting this object. Why? Because I'm going to be using this object somewhere else. Okay, is this part clear? Okay, simple object, and I'm exporting. All right, now we talked about functions. Then those functions are going to be exported, and then we are going to call those functions. Okay. Now, what are those functions? Remember, I said the queries. We're going to isolate the queries. We're going to make some generic functions that can be called against any table. Okay, so that I'm going to write my query once, and it can be used for any table that I want. Okay, but I still do need to write my query at least once. So let's go ahead and first create just about the function. Okay, I need an input, but we'll come back to it. Okay, so what is the query for select? Select star from some table name. Okay, I want to make it generic. All right, I can pass in any table I want, and it should work. Right? Anybody remember what is a placeholder for table and column names? So for our data, we have a single question mark for placeholders, right? We've seen those queries. What about if I have to pass in a table? 2 question marks, okay? 2 question from a placeholder. And this placeholder is going to be replaced by a table name. Okay? All right. So come back to how do we call our query, connection.query, same function. And then we are going to pass in our query string. Okay, and then we have to pass in a table name, right? Why? Because it's expecting a table name. So we'll keep this empty for now. Complete our function. Okay, error results. Okay, just going to copy the error. If there's any error, go ahead and push that. Otherwise, let's just console log it for now. Console log results. Okay, now I need a table name, right? Where do I get the table name from? I'm going to ask whoever is calling my select function. I'm going to say, hey, give me the table name. I know you want to run a select query, but what is the table that you're trying to run that select query against? Okay, so they're going to pass me the table name, and then I'm going to just pass my table name here. Okay, eventually what I did, I created a function, select, but I created a very generic function. I did not hard code a table name over here. Okay, what I'm saying is I'm exposing this. You pass me, you tell me which table am I going to go and run my select query from. Okay. Now, if I want to call this function, let's go to my server.js. What do I have to do? I have to import this. So we'll go ahead and import require. Okay. Dot slash. It's inside my config folder. Okay. ORM dot. I want to run my select query against which table? I'm going to run against my pets table. Okay, let's go ahead and run this before, make sure this is running. Okay, so you see this? So I'm getting all the data from my pets. Let's suppose I want to run a select query against my buyers table. I could do orm.select buyers, and it runs and sends me all the buyers data. This at the bottom. You see that? Isn't it easier versus, so you still have to write the query, but you have to write it only once. And then what it does, you can pass in any table you want, and it's going to run that select query. What is the biggest advantage? Less typos. You just have to make sure you write it correctly once, and just keep copying this file into a different database. Doesn't matter. Just update your database to whatever database you want, right? This is the only change in this file. You can literally just keep copy pasting connection.js, change your database, copy orm.js, literally no change over here, and that's it. And in your server.js, you just keep passing in your table names. Okay, let's suppose now what the query runs only select star from a table name. Let's suppose I want to run a query select star from a table name where, and I'm looking for a column. Okay, you can create another function here. Let's call it select where function. We'll see what we need. We'll come back and complete that part out, and then we'll create our query same as the previous one. We'll say const query string is equal to, we'll say select star from table name double question marks. Okay, where column name has to be double question mark, and then some value. Okay, a very generic query. You can't get any more generic than this. Okay, remember your where clauses, they are very similar. So in the previous example, it was select star from quotes where quote underscore ID, the column name, is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever it is. Okay, so what do I need from the user who's calling me? I need the table name, so I'm going to ask them to give me the table name, and then I need my select star from table where, so column name, okay, and then column value. Okay, once I get this, let me just copy this. It's going to be almost the same. Okay, so we have our query string, which is this one. We have our data table name, but we need to pass in our column name as well. So column name, and then we need to pass our column value. Okay, and everything else remains the same. Right? So if I want to call this, let's go back to my server. Let's say, let's comment this out so you guys can see the next one. I'm going to say orm dot select where, and let's see what's the first argument, table name. I want to select from my pets table. Which column? Let's say animal underscore name column. Okay, where animal underscore name is equal to Rachel. That's one of the entries in the database. Let's make sure Rachel. Okay, so I'm trying to find this, a pet with this name. Okay, Go back to your, and there's the data. Okay, let's suppose I want to get something from my buyers table. Okay, so I will do ORM dot select where, this time from my buyers table. Okay, column name, let's say buyer name. Okay, buyer name is Jane. Okay, let's go back to our seeds. Buyer Jane and Kevin. Jane and Kevin. Okay, so now what happens? It's going to go ahead and run from a buyer's table. Okay, you can pick a different column. You can pick buyer's ID. Let's go back to our seeds. You can pick a different, you can pick a breed. So you can change the first one and then say animal underscore breed, and breed is equal to, let's say, wolf. Okay, let's comment this out so you can only see that. And then it only returns me data from this thing. Okay, so I can so right now what am I selecting? I'm selecting star, right? Because you have to, it's going to select all the columns, right? You can write a query saying that you only want to select certain columns. Like, you are going to tell me which columns do I need to select. Don't give me all the columns back. That's also a possibility. You can write another function here. You can say select by column, select by columns there, and then create a function. We'll see what we need. Okay, let's copy this. All right, instead of star, I'm saying you are going to tell me what columns do you want, right? I don't want to see all the columns. And then same thing, same query code. Okay, now what changes? What do I need? I need name of columns. So I can ask the user to give me columns, and this is going to be an array because I can have one or more than one columns. Okay, and the rest of the stuff I need table name. Okay, same thing, column name, and also column value. Okay, over here everything remains the same, just pass in columns. Okay, so this is my query. What would my query begin? I can run the same kind of similar query, and then this time I can say orm.select by columns. I need to give an array of columns. That what am I trying to select? I don't want to see all the columns. Let's suppose I only want to see animal underscore breed. Okay, and I want to see animal underscore name. These are the only two columns I want to see. Okay, from what table? From my pets table. And then what am I looking for my where clause? Let's say animal underscore name, same as my previous example. So I'll just copy. Okay, so it only returns me a single one and only two columns, animal breed and animal name. Again, why? Because I said I don't want to see all the columns. I want to see some specific column. These are the only two columns I'm interested in. Okay, so I wrote a function. Let me minimize these. Okay, and then it selects me only these columns. Okay, now you're writing the query once, but you can reuse the same function over and over again for different tables. You don't have to. You have to write the query, but you have to write it only once. Okay, you can write a query for join. Okay, we'll take a break at 8 o'clock. Give me like 5 minutes. I'll write the last one. So let's suppose I have two tables, right? I want to join those two tables. So I can write a function with joins. So you can say join tables. Okay, same thing, function. We'll look at what parameters we need. Const query string is equal to something. Okay, now star or column names. Okay, we'll say column name from, and then table name. Okay, question mark, inner join, and then again table name, right? You need two tables. Okay, after that you need the condition. We start with on. Okay, on, and then you are matching, you are taking some row, a unique row from this one and a unique row from this one. Okay, so from our pets and our buyers database, it's going to be where buyer's ID is equal to the buyer ID over here. Okay, so that I'm joining two tables, I'm getting all the data, like all the pets that belong to some buyer. Okay, I want to find out what buyer, what pets belong to which buyer. Okay, if you look at the data, we have two buyers, okay, Kevin and Jane, and both of them have some pets over here. Okay, and these are identified by ID. So ID 1 is Kevin's ID, and 2 is Jane. So these two belong to Kevin, these two belong to Jane. But we can look at it and we can determine how do we get this data back. We need the join query. Okay, so for column names, it's going to be some column dot column name, the table name dot column name, and then something. Okay, remember it's going to be pets.buyer ID and then buyer.buyer ID. Okay, again, if it is confused, please go back and look into the inner join query again. It's the exact same query. The only thing is we are replacing it with question marks, right? Question marks are for your table and columns in. That's all it is going on over here. Okay, it kind of gets complicated. The only reason is because you are passing it so much information. Like I'm asking the user to tell me exactly what they are trying to do. So for example, let's copy this. So what do we need? We need our column names for the first one. So that's there. We need two tables. So let's call this the first table, table 1. Okay, this is this inner join, and then I need a table, my second table. Okay, so I have my table 2 is this one, and then what do I need next? Is it column? So this one is column. Select column 1 name, and then column 2 name. I think I missed this thing. This table 2, and then I need this again. This is what it kind of gets a little bit confusing because of the names that I have, but what I'm trying to do is you have to match each one and pass it in. So this is my column, table. This is going to be table 1 and column 1. So I have table 1, column 1, and the second one is going to be table 2, column 2. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Okay, so these are the things that I need. So I'm going to just copy paste them. The same. Oops, what did I do? Okay, let's see, how do we call this? So the queries can be as complicated as you want. So let's see if this actually works. So What's the first thing I need? Columns. Let's give it an array. Oops. Okay. Let's say we need our buyer's buyer name. Okay, I want to see by buyer name. I want to see. Let me just copy. I need to see animal breed. Okay. Oh no, what happened? I'm missing this. I want to see animal breed column. Let me copy animal name. Okay. I think this is enough. So I want to see these columns. My table 1 is going to be buyers and my table 2 is going to be pets. That's straightforward. These are the two tables which are going to be joined. And what am I joining them on? Remember the buyer underscore ID. That's common in both tables. So I'm saying join on these two IDs. Okay. Well, calling it doesn't look as complicated versus creating it. Again, you have to create it only once and you can use this same function for any two tables. Okay, so you are saying I want to see information for these columns. What are my two tables? These are my two tables. And what is the ID that they have to be matched? The ID that is common between both the tables. And that ID is buyer ID. Okay, so now if you look at this, oh no, there's an error. You have an error near line 1. Okay, maybe this. Nope. So, do you guys see anything that I'm missing? It should correspond to exactly one-on-one. That I have my column names, which should be here. Table 1 name, which should be this one. Table 2 name. Okay. It's a wrong order. Which one is wrong? When I call the function, the order is wrong.
Table, then column, second table,
No, I didn't get it. So my order is columns, table 1, table 2,
Oh, sorry.
and then column 1 and column 2. Right? So select star from question, inner join this on. Oh, you know what? I need two question marks. Remember, we need two question marks for our column names. Come on. Now it should work. So this was a test. Apparently, you guys know. And there you go. So I combined my tables so I can exactly see which animal belongs to which person. Okay, remember 2 belong to Kevin and 3 belong to Jim. So that's how you would do it. This was my mistake. So single is for values. These are column names, right? On column dot on table dot column. So that's why I still need double question marks. Okay. Let's take a break. Come back and we'll see any questions, and you guys will try it out on your own. Sadly, this is not even the challenging part. The challenging part is still coming. So hang on tight. Hang on tight for 1.5 more hours. All right. Then I'm on vacation. I'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Is Matt part of this? So
I know, I was like, yeah, I know who. I was like, those people. No, I think that. I mean, I knew it
All right, let's start. So we'll be working on exercise number 13. Okay. Um, it's called party database. If you look at the unsolved one, you should have schema and seed file already given to you. Okay, so run these both. If you look at the schema file, you have two tables, clients and parties, very similar to the same example that I just solved. Okay, so make sure run the database, create these two tables. These two are already given to you, so you can easily run this, copy paste this query, and then you will run your seed file, so you will have some data inside it. Okay, it is same as buyers and pets what I had. Okay, the next you will see there's nothing else. So after that, I'm going to keep my folder structure open. Don't worry about the DB. You already have schema. You can create a folder and move your files over here. That's not important. Create a server.js. Okay. Create a config file. Copy the connection over from your previous activity, whatever the SQL connections that you have, or you can rewrite the whole thing. It's up to you. Make sure you update to parties or whatever the database name is. Export this connection out. Okay, that's going to be our first file. Create a config folder, create a connection.js, copy this over from a previous example, but you are only copying the MySQL related part. Okay, that's all this has. Start the connection, export this connection file. Right. Next, you're going to create a orm.javascript file. Within that ORM, start with the first function, at least start with the first one. Okay, same thing, the only difference, or actually if you look at it, there's literally no difference over here. I could, well, I'm not going to do it right now. I could send you this file and you can start running your database against this file. Why? Because literally this is so generic, you can pass any table, exact same code. You see that? The only difference is now you have a database called parties, which is you're going to update this over here. Okay, and then you can pass in whatever table name you have over here. Okay, but I want you guys to create the ORM file. Create an ORM file, at least create the first function, export it out, call in your server.js, make sure that this is running. Okay, folder structure, config, connection.js. Connection has your SQL connection data. You can copy it from the previous one. Connect it, export this out. Okay. Make sure you have to install MySQL, npm MySQL. Okay. I don't think there's a package file in that folder. Okay. Next, within the config folder, create an ORM object. At least create the first function. There's literally no change over here. Okay. You see, so I can run this file against any database I want, any table I want, without making any changes. So once you have this file, you can reuse this file for any other database. Okay. So complete the select one. If you're done with this, take a look at the select where. We'll discuss what ORM means, and then I'll show you another activity related to this one. Yes. Is what? Oh, this one? Why do I have this in array? I thought I read in documentation this has to be an array. What about if you don't put an array? Does this work? So one of the reasons that I had it as a table, as an array is because I'm trying to be consistent. If you look at the bottom, my second parameter is an array. And for my second function, I definitely need an array, right? Why? Because I have more than one double question mark. So I was just trying to be consistent to make sure that my second parameter is always an array. This time it's only going to pick one and work with it. So that's the only reason I have a array over here. You can remove it. I think it will work without an array, but it's going to only work for one. But yeah, that should still work. All right, were you guys able to do the first one? At least have the connection in different files. Okay, any questions? Code is there, that's okay, but do you understand the concept? That I am wrapping my queries with functions, and instead of calling my queries directly, I'm calling functions, passing in some information, and behind the scenes some queries are running. Okay, this concept is called ORM. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping. Object relational mapping. Okay. ORMs are basically tools that let you talk to databases without you writing a query. Okay. Now ORMs are available in every language. They are present in Java. They are present in C#. They are also now present in Node.js, in JavaScript also. Okay. We will talk about ORMs on Saturday and the whole of next week. There is already a library for ORM that we'll be using. It's called Sequelize. It's specifically for MySQL. But right now I want you guys to understand what is the concept of ORM and why is it good. Okay, I will be honest, I really hate writing queries, and every project I have done, I've always used an ORM. I've like stopped writing queries anymore. If I have any say in it, I tell my team, oh, don't write query, just start using ORM. So in Java, they have ORMs libraries, and I just use those things. Okay, they would do a lot of stuff for you, but still we have to have a setup and everything, and we'll take a look at that next week. But behind the scene, this is what is going on. Eventually, it has to be a query. Okay, there is no other way you can talk to a database other than writing a query. The only thing is somebody else is now writing that query. Okay. Again, ORM is for these kind of stuff, kind of helps you. Um, you can see some of the issues we can run into. I mean, typos, or you don't remember the queries, you have to look up the syntax. MySQL has a different syntax, maybe SQL Server has a little bit different syntax. You have to worry about all those stuff. Okay, ORMs or ORM libraries, they kind of handle that. You have to specify, hey, I'm using an ORM for MySQL. So behind the scene, they have all the queries that work in MySQL. Okay, let's suppose you're using SQL Server. You will say, oh, I'm going to use ORM for SQL Server. Behind the scenes, they have all the queries that work in SQL Server, so you don't have to kind of worry about it. What you have to worry about is setting up the tables from the ORM and then learning what functions to call. Okay, for example, our ORM exposes these three functions: select where, select by column where, join tables. Okay, so if I send this file to you, you can include and start using my ORM that I just built. Okay, if you look back, this is actually an API. Remember from the concept wise, because I'm exposing this, and behind the scenes I have a whole library. It's kind of library that you are creating. Okay, so that's the concept of ORM. Behind the scenes, ORM are SQL queries that talk to a database, but if you're using an ORM, they expose functions that you can call. You can import those functions and call those functions to run the exact same thing. Okay, any questions on ORM or the concept? Yes.
Are constructors considered a type of ORM?
No. ORM is specifically for data. If you look at databases, they're called RDBMS databases, relational databases. That's where the part is coming.
So it's like created as a function, why is it called an object?
So if they are creating by a function, but you see what am I exposing it? What is ORM? You see that? Okay. So behind the scenes, they are exposing an object. So you are saying object dot select object dot this. So that's one. Okay. Relational part comes from the database, RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. Mapping means you are mapping your object to your database. That's what it's called. Okay. Again, ORM is only for databases, nothing else. All right, good question. Any other questions? No questions? Everybody understand ORM? It does have a learning curve, but if you understand it, they are really. I love ORMs. You know, again, as I said, I really hate writing queries, especially the complex ones. ORM kind of solve that issue because they're saying, hey, these are the functions. If you call these, again, if you have your database set up correctly, we will give you the required information. I will see that next week. Okay. All right. If no questions, let's take a look at exercise number 14. So, what is going on in the previous activity? We were console logging our information. Okay, take a look at this one. It's just one function. Okay, so in the previous activity, what were we doing with the results? We were console logging. Is that feasible? Not really, right? If I have a function, somebody is going to call my function, they don't expect to log the result, right? They are expecting that the result is going to come back to me because I'm calling a function. I'm going to return the data, and then I'm going to do something with it, whatever I want. Okay? If I stop over here and I console log, that's not really a library, that's not really an API because I'm not returning anything. Does that make sense? Right? If I'm running a function and this function says, I'm going to run a query, get the data for you, and I'm just going to console log over here. Well, not really. It's not really helpful. Why don't you give me the data back? Okay, so what do I have to do? When I get the data, I return the result. Does that make sense? Okay, so if I'm calling this function, so go ahead and take a look at this function when you call from your server.js. All right, I'm getting the data back in my server.js and I'm logging this data. So go ahead, take a few minutes, run this, install everything. There's a package JSON, everything is there. I want you guys to study this file, and tell me, take a look at it and see why is the data coming back empty. It's the same thing from this, so you don't have to create a new database. Should be there. Or if on your table you didn't do it, somebody else did it, somebody else created a table, look over them and kind of, you can work as a group and figure out why am I getting this data undefined. My function is there, okay? If there's any error, throw the error, that's okay. Am I getting the result back over here? I am. If you run this, if you console log over here, you're going to get something back, right? You're calling the query for this, but it's coming back something. But when you do a return and you're trying to console log this over here, it should show you undefined. I want you guys to find out why is it undefined and how do we fix that. So I'll create this database as well. This is the schema. Okay. This is the seeds file. Okay. My package JSON is there, so I should be able to install npm I. Okay. Let's go back and I'll fix. I'm gonna put my password. Okay. Let's go ahead and run this. This is 14 unsolved. Okay. So I get this undefined. Why are we getting this undefined? I have a return statement should give me some data back. Make sure you guys are able to run this. or if somebody already completed the previous one or at least have a database, make sure to look over their shoulder and try to figure out why am I getting undefined. What is it? Did somebody figure it out?
I'm looking about missing something about the promise.
Ah.
Since it's asynchronous.
Oh.
Wait.
Okay. Well, right now, why is it async? Which part of this is making it async? Dot query. Excellent. You guys see? Why is it async? I have a callback function over here. So this is an async request. Okay, so I'm calling this function. It does an async request. And then within the request, I'm saying return result. Okay, if I go back to my server.js, I'm saying, oh, I'm going to get the data back. Is it going to work? No. Why? This is an async. Remember, you cannot return from an async call. It doesn't follow. It's going to come back whenever it comes back. You cannot depend on this being returned. Okay, again, why? It's going to call this function and it's going to jump onto the next line. It is always going to jump onto the next line. This is an async function. You cannot expect a result, a return type to come back. Okay? Do you understand this? If you do, what is the solution? We've been looking at this over and over again. How do we solve this? We cannot return a result. What do we have to do? How do we return something from a async call? What is it? That's your jQuery. How do we ensure how is other functions handling this? How is the query function handling this? So it's the same problem with the query function, but they have handled it. How are they handling this? It's an async call, but they are able to get the result. The return is not correct, but they are getting the results back. How are they handling this? The query function, your Ajax function, your but there's no then over here. What is it? Callback function. Do you guys see a callback function in query? What is this last parameter? Callback function. Remember what I said, the only way to handle a async call is to use a callback function. Okay, now we have covered this, but you guys might not remember. We covered what are callback functions and how do we write those callback functions. This was a few weeks ago, and we did a quick exercise and we walked through. We said, okay, create a function, create a callback function, and how does it return and all that stuff. Okay, query does the exact same thing, and the only solution is writing a callback function. Okay, so now your query function is async. One of the arguments of this is a callback function. Okay, my select where is also a async method. Again, why? Because I'm using something async and I'm depending on it. So by default, my select where function also becomes a async method. So what am I missing over here? A callback function. I'm missing a callback function over here. Okay, so my function needs to have an argument which is going to be a callback function. Let's call it CB. Okay, I'm defining this callback function. I'm defining my argument over here. Okay, this is calling part, connection.query. We are calling a function which is expecting a callback function. Again, go back, look at the previous exercises, but this time I'm creating a function which is expecting a callback function. Okay, now if I'm expecting a callback function, I can say callback result. Okay, as soon as my connection.query completes, call this function. Where is this function? This is the function that is going to be passed in my argument. Okay. Now, who is calling this function? My server.js. Okay. So if I go back to my server.js, what am I missing over here? The callback function at the end. Now my ORM select function, if you type this out and say ORM dot select where, you will see the last argument, CB. Okay. I mean, there's no documentation because we haven't written it, but that's the callback function that we need to pass in. Okay. Similar to the query one, what do I have to do? Function. Okay. What is going to be the parameter? Result. Why? Because I am, if you go back to your ORM, you're calling whatever function you pass in, and you're passing this argument over here. So this has to be something. Let's call it result. You can call it anything you want. Okay. Now we can go ahead and move this inside here. This is not going to be undefined anymore. And this is going to be, oh, let's call it data, because we already have this data over here. Okay. Now if you go back over here, oh, it's written me in an empty array. It should return you something. Why is it returning me an empty? It's probably because I don't have it inserted my data in a different database. Please don't do this. Where's my parties? Query parties. Not the database, the table name. Oh, it doesn't have any data. Alright, you guys gonna make me look into the schema? Let's see. My seeds file. I guess I didn't run my seeds file. Parties database, new query. Seeds. Okay. Let's see if this works. RS. There you go. I guess I didn't run my seeds query. All right, come back to this one. Now, if you run this, it says it's going to actually give you some data back. Again, just to recap, you cannot do a return from already a async function. Okay, that's how JavaScript is. You cannot do a return. It's not going to give you anything back. Again, why? Because it is async. Anything that is over here is going to be executed before this function completes. And why is this function async? The reason is because I'm calling an async function, which is query, and I'm depending on this result. Okay, to resolve this, the only solution is you create a callback function. You define, okay, this is calling the callback function. This is a query. They're passing in a callback function, which is anonymous. Okay, this is a definition. Okay, you are defining a function which is going to expect this, and a callback function. Okay, with this is going to be a function, so you're going to call this function and pass the result. Okay, how do you call this function now? You go back to your original one, just like you're calling your query function. Okay, your query function has this input, an array, and a callback function. So if you look at the query function, if you look at the definition, this is the calling. If you look at the definition, if you look at the documentation or open up their code, you will see that the query function at the end is expecting a callback function, kind of something similar to this one. And that's what you're trying to do, the exact same thing. Okay, the only difference is this is calling a query function which already has a definition of a callback function. This one, we are defining it ourselves. Okay, now once you come back over here, you're going to call it the exact same way you call any other async function. Okay, you're going to make an anonymous function, you're expecting a data back, and then you can go ahead and console log that data. Okay, your ORMs, you will see this is how they return the data. All right, you might not have to write the ORMs, but it is important that you understand why this callback function is required. Why do your ORMs are asking you to have callback functions over here? And the reason is because they are eventually using MySQL package probably and making some queries, and behind the scene they are calling this. Okay, they will not be able to return you data unless they have a callback function defined. Okay, that's most probably that's the reason. Any questions? I know this is confusing a little bit. I hope you guys were doing some more activities. It's kind of, we have covered this, but I feel like it's been like a few weeks before we covered that callback function thing. Might be a good time, go back, look at those activities specifically for callback, and I'll include some activities this week also which kind of relate to those callback functions. How do you create a callback function? How do you define? And this is important. It's just not this part. Once you are creating your APIs in your projects, you will most probably run into this issue. And the solution would be, I'm going to tell you, hey, include a callback function in your definition over here. Not necessarily ORM. This is not specific to ORM. This is JavaScript. Okay. I'm going to say, oh, include a callback function, and then return the result in this fashion. That's the solution. Okay? Any questions? No questions? I'm pretty sure you guys didn't understand this. What is it? I guess your joke fell flat. All right, any questions, please? This is important stuff. It's going to be very hard for me to come back when you guys are ready, so that's why I'm saying either I'm not discouraging you from asking questions later on, but please look into these concepts. I know they look scary, but again, once you are in the habit, once you are practicing this more, it's going to look more natural. Okay, I'm not lying. If you think you are not making progress, please go to next class and talk to some people over there, and ask them what issues they are having. They're having trouble with HTML, CSS, exactly the same way you guys were like 13 weeks ago, right? But if you talk to them, you'll be like, oh, no, that's easy. I can tell you this, right? This is progress. This is really progress. Eventually, when you will progress, so you are progressing. It's just that, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't think I know this stuff. You know this stuff. Again, if you want some validation, please go talk to somebody over there. All right, they're struggling with Bootstrap right now. JavaScript doesn't make sense. Variable, let, const. What is this? Why do they have 3 options over there? So this is progress, but with progress, the difficulty level, of course, goes up. All right. So we're kind of venturing into a little bit challenging stuff. Even next week, I said that the 3 weeks are going to be challenging. Even though the next week is we're going to be using a library that does ORM for us, but you still have to learn how to use that library. How do I set it up? Okay? Any questions relating to this? Callback functions. Yes. Thank you for asking, Michael.
That the callback function is that what's known as a promise?
This function?
No.
This thing?
Yeah.
No, this is the callback function, remember?
Okay.
Promise is a return. What you are saying is my query function is going to return a promise. It's going to return something, but it's going to return a promise. That's what the concept is. Okay? Now, what do I do with that promise when that promise completes? This is where this callback function comes in. So your callback function is say, hey, when your results come back, when you are done with calling this, when my promise returns, call this function. Yes. Query is not a promise. Query is returning something. What is it returning? It's returning a promise. Query is a function. By definition, what is query? This is a function. What is select where? This is a function. It doesn't do anything, right? A function returns something. What is it returning? It's returning a promise. What is a promise? It is saying hey, you are making this query to a database and everything. I'm acing, right? I'm going to try my best. I'm going to find this table. I'm going to make query. In the meanwhile, I'm promising you that I'm working on something. Okay, I'm working. I promise you I'm working on something. I don't have the results yet. I'm going to come back to you eventually. Okay, so please don't wait on me, but I'm promising you when I complete, I'm going to give you the results back. So that's what a promise is. So this query function is saying that you have called me, that's good. I need some time. I promise you I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you the result, whatever you are asking me. Okay? Now, where is this result going to come back? Tell me where to call you back. I have the results. Now, what do I do with that results? Right? So you are saying, hey, once you are done with these results, call this function over here. Okay? This is an indication that you have the results. Let me know when you have the results. This is the way you ensure that your promise is fulfilled. Once your promise is fulfilled, what do you do with it? Right? You call this function. That's the indication. That's what it is. The query technically returns a promise, but this promise is being fulfilled in this function with this variable over here. Yes, Rina?
So basically we can compare this callback function to the then when we do objects,
All right. What was it?
I believe in objects,
Objects?
objects.
Oh, Ajax. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we use it then.
Yes.
So this is the
Yes. 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 Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. With what are you doing in the then? The then parameter is a callback function, right? So that's the exact same thing. Same concept. The only difference is the syntax. That's all. In this, you don't have a then function. You are putting it over here. In Ajax, you can put in the then function, or you can even put it over there. It's the same thing. But you still need a callback function, which is going to be called once your promise is fulfilled. So it needs to have a callback function. Whether it is in the then function, whether it is over here, doesn't matter. Any other questions? Yes.
So in this in server.js file,
Server.js, yes.
callback function there
Callback
only
function.
has the console log inside.
Yes. You can do
So
anything you want here.
yeah, yeah. So essentially in the ORM, when you write the CB results,
Uh-huh.
it's
You are calling.
it's calling that function.
It's calling a function CB. Where is that function CB?
That's in the server.
It's over here. No, it's over here right now.
Oh, but
Yeah. So you are saying that, hey, whatever function that you pass over here, I'm just going to call it, and I'm going to pass this. It doesn't know what the function is, what does it do, it doesn't care. All it is saying is, hey, whatever function you pass me over here, I'm going to call and I'm going to pass this argument inside the function. Now you do with it whatever you want. So if you go back to your server.j, that's what you are saying. You are basically passing a function, right, with one parameter. It's an anonymous function, but it does the same thing. So this function will get called at this point. At this point, it's going to look for this, and it's going to go back over here, and it's going to call this function. Have data, you can do anything you want. Right now, I'm just console logging. What is it? Console of what? Console dot table? Oh, yeah. There you go. Maybe I should start using. There you go. Does that make sense now? Since I did a console, I thought that was so easy. I was like, oh, now it makes sense. Why didn't you do this before? Okay. All right. This isn't even the challenging one. So we have 25 minutes. Just concentrate on this. Okay. All right. So it's not like a challenging thing. It's more like a design. How do we design our applications? More like a design pattern. What I would say. Um, since we are kind of moving towards a project, I want to show you guys how do more like a production apps kind of look like. Still not exactly like this. We're kind of trending towards that. Okay. So you will see this word MVC. It's extremely popular. Almost all anywhere you work, you will hear this word MVC. Okay. This is what is MVC? It's a design pattern. Okay. It is how you design your code. How do you put your code? Again, remember, you can create all of this in one single file. It's possible. Yes. A file with 15,000 lines, you can write every single folder in that file. You will probably stoned or you will be like shunned from that company if you do that, right? So to cater to that, a lot of people come up with some design patterns in computer science. One of them related to website, related to web development, is called MVC. Okay, M stands for model. Model. V stands for view, and C stands for control. Okay. Now, what is a view? View consists of your HTML pages, your pages that are exposed that the user is going to see. That's the view. Literally, that's what view means. Okay. Model is related to your database. Okay. Any database, ORM stuff, creating those tables and everything, those belong to model. Okay, view, front end, your HTML, your JavaScript, whatever the user is seeing. Model, all your database stuff. Okay, so literally you can think you will be creating a folder called view and it will have your HTML. You create a folder model, it will have all your database related stuff. Okay, ORM, where does ORM go? Model, right? It's related to database. So ORM goes in your model. Controller, controller is the bridge between your view and model. Okay, what does your view do? It shows some information, right? We solved our quotes app, we did our parties, whatever. The data is showing up in your HTML pages, right? What is happening? It's going to database and getting some information back and showing it on the page. Okay. Now, in this model, in this structure, your view never talks to model directly. It has to go through this thing. Okay. Your view is ignorant of anything related to database. That's how it is modeled. Okay. The controller is the one that talks to your view and then talks to your model. Your view says, hey, I need this information. I need to display this information. So it will go to the controller and make a request and say, hey, I need this information. The controller will say, all right. It will talk to the model. It will say, hey, database, hey, model, this is what I need. Give me this information back. Once it gets the information, it shows a bit, it sends it back to the view. Okay? That's how this architecture design is done. All right? Now, why this came up, as you code, you will see some of the advantages, and we can discuss it further, but this is how it is. Okay, your view has no idea about the model, your model has no idea about the view. Okay, so your model should not have any code related to view. It should not be talking to the view. Okay, it should only be talking to the controller. That's what MVC is. Okay, now coming back to the coding part, if you see the folder structure, you have your views. Okay, if you open up your views, you will see it has your handlebar files. Okay, because these are the ones that are going to be displaying some information. Okay, let's go back to our models. If you open up models, you will see what are these. These are functions that are being exposed, and what do they do? They're talking to the database. Do you guys see it? Eventually they're calling an ORM. ORM gives some information back, and then you are returning this information. Okay, so this is my database, this is my ORM. Okay, let's look at our controllers. What are controllers? Controller is the bridge that is between my views and uh, my model. Okay, what goes inside this? All the routes. Does it make sense? Do you see why all the routes go inside the controller? Because your view is making an API call, right? So they're calling some routes. That's shown in the right slash API, some of the routes. So controller is the one that has all these routes. And these routes then go back and then make a database call and gets the information back. So all your routes are defined in the controller. Okay? So your views, handlebar files, HTML files, or whatever, your models, anything related to the database. For example, ORM. Okay? Controller, your routes. So your routes are the way that your views are going to talk to this, and then eventually you're going to call your database from these routes. Okay, let's take a look at this. You see this is calling cat.create. What is cat? This is in your models. If you look up this function, it is exposing these functions. Now what they're doing, what the ORM is doing, this already is done for you. So you don't have to worry about. The only thing you need to understand is when I call this function, it's going to insert a row. When I call this function, it's going to give me all the rows from my database. When I call this function, it is supposed to update my database. Of course, I need to pass in these values over here. Okay, based on these values, it's going to update my database. Now, where is this coming from? Let's go back to our controller. Cat.create looks like it's passing. My create is expecting columns, so it is passing these two columns. Okay, the second it is expecting values, so it is passing the request.body name and sleepy. This is a post request, so it is coming in the body. Okay, and the last parameter is a callback function, and the reason is we just saw in the previous one, if you want to get something back, you need to have a callback function. Okay, now more important, I mean, this code is there. You guys will have to study this code, but remember, we are following MVC strategy, and in your project, that is one of the expectations. Okay, this is an initial pass. This is kind of going to change. Right now, we have our ORM, which is our custom ORM. Again, you don't have to worry about what is going on over here. The only thing you need to understand is these functions. Okay, I have my all, create, and update. Okay, if you look at your all, same thing, query from whatever, the exact same thing that we did in the previous activity. Okay, you have your create function, same query. Okay, and then you pass in these values. Look at the update function, same thing, update, table name, set. I mean, this is the solution that is posted, but you can see you can put it in one line, use a template retro, and you can do the same thing. The only important part is you have your question marks and everything. But again, don't worry about that. This is already done for you. So this ORM is custom written, and you can look up the comments to see what these functions are doing. But basically, this ORM is doing these functions. Okay, when we start using an ORM library such as Sequelize, we kind of do same thing, but what we need to understand is how to use these functions. If you want to call the create function, what do you have to do? You have to say orm.create. Okay, orm.update, orm.all. All right, and where do we do this? If you go back to your controllers, let's look at the get route, cat.all, and if you open this function, orm.all. Okay, same thing with any other function over here. Let me go back here. Close this one. Let's do this. Okay, any questions? Do you at least understand the concept model, view, and controller? What goes in the model? Database, remember? Okay, now coming back over here. What is this router dot, what is going on over here? Huh? Any idea? Huh? Okay, remember how when we were separating our HTML routes and API routes? If you haven't done that activity, you probably won't get this part also. But if you looked at it, remember how we are separating? I hope you guys did in the homework also. Separating the HTML and your API routes. Okay, what do you have to pass in to your API routes? Oh, no. App. Remember that function, that variable you are passing in app? What is that app? That's the express initialization, right? You do a express, you have an app is equal to express, and then you have to pass that in. If you don't pass in it, it doesn't work, right? It's not going to work. You have to do it. The other thing is you can use a router. You don't have to pass an app and everything. What Express has come out with is they say if you use this, it becomes like a small mini router app. You don't have to declare an Express somewhere else in your code, for example, in your server.js, and then pass. Remember, we are declaring it over here, and then when we have to call it, we have to pass this app in. Okay? So what they are saying is instead of that, you can use a router library or kind of like a function that is built into Express. Okay, what does this do? You have to create an Express, you have to create a router, and everything is exactly the same. Instead of app, you are saying this variable over here. Okay, and the good part about this is you don't have to pass in this app inside your API routes or your HTML routes so that it can be used. Again, can you do it? Yes, you can totally do it. You can keep following it. But there is a second option. You can do it this way. Okay, what this does is it creates its own mini Express app and make sure that your routes are running. Okay, so it's not dependent on this app over here. You don't have to declare this app, do this, and then pass this in your routes. You don't have to do this. If you want, you can do it. Again, this wouldn't make sense if you haven't done the API routes and the HTML routes activity or you haven't seen that code. Okay? If you haven't, please go back, look at that code first, and see what is going on. Why do I have to pass that variable app inside my file? Okay? And why do I have to declare this variable over here? Okay? Can I declare this variable anywhere else? Answer is no, but why I cannot do it? And the reason is because of this. If I declare this anywhere else, I cannot do a listen. That, and they saw what the design pattern, what people were doing, so they came out with this router. They're saying, okay, you don't have to keep passing that app, just create a router and we will connect it to this app over here. They take care of it. What you have to do is you have to have this thing. You have to pass in your routes, your controller file basically. Again, this is the important part. This is how your app variable is being connected to this Express app over here. Okay. Now again, please go back and look at that API routes and the HTML. Why are they separated? You have to pass in this app variable and then you create those routes. Okay. Just to avoid that, Express has a router library. You can use this. Functionality, nothing changes. It's still the same get route, post route, put routes. Okay. The only difference is you have a router. You're not passing anything, any Express app from your server.js. Okay. Coming back to server.js, you have to have this function app.use, and then pass in this whatever variable you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. Okay. You have to mention this. Okay, one more thing over here. If you look into your views, if you remember handlebars has a layouts main. Okay, that's still the same thing. Index, same thing. All right, we are looping through some variable. You will see a folder called partials. Okay, remember when I said talked about React, when I said that React follows components. It basically is saying that everything in your web page has to be a React says everything has to be a separate component. Okay, by a separate component. These are individual components. These are individual HTML files, which towards the end kind of come together and make your web page, right? Handlebar kind of follows the same strategy, but they are called partials. Okay, these are pages that are small components of your page that are separated out. So a header could be its own partial, a footer could be a partial, this could be a partial, these could be individual components. Okay, now components. Components like small portions, divide your web page into different portions. Okay, in handlebars it's called partial. So if you look at this one, it's just this random HTML, nothing else. It is just an li tag with some information. Okay, on its own it doesn't do anything, it doesn't exist, right? But this thing is going to be eventually be embedded on your main page somewhere. Okay, now where is this being embedded in? If you go back to your index, remember this line number 18. So we are saying, hey, in this HTML, go ahead and embed this component. A component which is inside your cats folder, there it is, and it's called cat-block. Okay, so what is going to happen? It's going to come to this line, it's going to look for this inside your partial folder, and it's whatever code is over here, it's going to come over here and replace it over here. Okay, again, what is the advantage? You can see there are at least 7-8 lines. It's a small page, but you have reduced it to just one line over here. Okay, and this is how Handlebar does it, but this is very frequent in React. React is based off all like creating small components and kind of embedding them into your web page later on. Okay, now let me cover if conditions in Handlebar, exactly the same as you have done. Okay, you will see that unless. Okay, so how does if run? If says if when this is true is going to execute this line. Okay, unless is exactly opposite of if. So this line is going to be executed if this is false. Okay, remember how does if work? If works if the condition is true, right? It's not going to work if the condition is false, right? Unless only works if the condition is false. It does not work if the condition is true. Okay, a little bit tricky. One more time. If this condition is true, what's going to happen? This line is going to get executed. Okay, with unless, if this is true, is this going to get executed? No. Why? Unless is looking for false. Only if this is false, this line is going to get executed. That's the only thing. You can use if else as well, but the keyword is there, so I want you guys to know about this in your handlebars also. Okay, again, we are missing one thing from this, and if you look at the code, and I mean, we don't have time to do it, but I'm going to go over it, and I would please make sure you add this functionality. So you see, we have all, we have create, we have update, we are missing delete. Okay, take a look at this activity first, make sure you understand, run it, and then go ahead and see if you can insert a delete. Okay, we are missing a delete. So if I run this solution, you will see a delete button showing up. Is this the one? No. Okay, I guess I didn't. I'll just run this. Okay, let's go to localhost 3000. This is how it shows up. Okay, these are all working. You can add a cat. You can, if you see, if you wake up, it goes on the top. If you say sleep, kind of comes down, right? This is all working. The only thing it is missing is a delete button. So you'll have to add a delete button over here and a delete functionality. You can add a cat at the bottom also. Okay. Again, what I would suggest is before you start doing the delete function, please take a look at this example. Take a look at MVC. Maybe post it on Slack or do it on Ask Me on Tuesday. Okay. There are some things over here. I want you guys to take a look at this, especially this thing. What is going on over here? What is this putting this over here? Okay. If you understand, it's not as complicated, but this is how I'll be assured that somebody actually went ahead and did the activity. Okay. So again, if you understand, that's good. If you don't, please come back and ask me, and especially say, okay, what is going on over here? Why is this not working? It's nothing that we haven't covered. I kind of get a feeling that most of the people are not going back and doing activities. So I want you guys to kind of enforce this, that you go look at it and try to understand what is going on and come and try to explain it to me. Tell me, hey, I looked at it. I think this is how it's working, but I'm not sure. This is how I would know that you actually went back and did it. Okay. Again, there's nothing that we haven't covered in the previous activity. Does that make sense? Okay. Please go back and do it. Okay. One more week, and it's